Hey everybody, welcome to the Maven Life. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Miranda Woodruff, and today I'm going to be talking about all things my third trimester in pregnancy, as well as my birth story, and then if you guys are lucky, if my son will participate, you all will get to meet Parker live. He was just down for a nap. Kyle's watching him right now because I told him that I wanted to do a live. I know I didn't announce that I was going to do this. Probably 2 weeks back, I asked you guys to leave me questions. So I'm going to go over like a Q&A that you guys wanted. And then as long as he is being good, I'm going to have Kyle bring him in the end. So if you'd like to meet Parker, be sure to stay tuned until the very end of this video. Also, I will be uploading this to my YouTube channel. So for those of you watching on YouTube, hello, this is a Facebook Live replay. For those of you who are here live, hi, where are you tuning in from? I know I have a ton of new followers. We just hit 60,000 followers. I believe it was either late last night or today. So I'm very, very grateful. Thank you so much. So yeah, I'm happy to be here. When you get here, say hi, let me know where you're tuning in from, or if you're here on the replay and it's no longer live, it'll say live in like the upper right or left hand corner. Let me know where you're tuning in from. How did you find my page? Nice to meet you. And I know I have a lot of returning visitors here. Yay, Madison! Oh, I missed you guys too. I know, honestly, the reason why I didn't announce is because, okay, I'm gonna be honest with you, and I'm hoping that I don't get all emotional. My eyes are already like starting to water, but I have been, my emotions have been all over the place since coming home with him. And I didn't know if I could handle being on a live and not bawling my eyes out every 2 seconds. So I wanted to try to wait until my hormones kind of leveled out a little bit, but I can't make any guarantees, okay? So I literally just randomly came in here after a shower and I was like, I'm putting on a little bit of makeup. It's very minimal amount, but I at least put something on and I kind of feel human. I put a t-shirt on. Don't be fooled though. I'm totally wearing pajama pants that don't even match the shirt underneath this, but you guys can't see it. Oh, hey, Angela from Iowa. She says she's originally from Owasso. That's my hometown, girl. Small world. Hey, Jenna. Columbus, Georgia. Hey, girlfriend. Oh, how do you say your name? Is it Prestique? I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but it looks really pretty. I'm super bad with pronouncing names. Hey, Erica from Penny. Hey, girlfriend. Gemma from Wales, UK. Hey, boo. Hey, Annalisa. Savannah says self-care. Yes. This is the first time that I put makeup on since Parker's newborn photo shoot, which we're anxiously awaiting those images so we can share them with you guys. Thanks, Angela. Hey, Kendra. I love and miss you too. Melanie's from Woodbury, Georgia. That's amazing. Oh, this makes me so happy. Thank you, Brittany. She's from Madisonville, Kentucky. Okay, all right. Well, it looks like we have a few followers on now. Thank you, Holly. I appreciate it. Pronounced prestige, like the word prestige. Am I saying it right? That is so beautiful. That is the most unique name I've ever heard in my entire life. That's beautiful. I love it. Hey, Shelby. Hey, Michaela. Okay, so I have my iPad with the post with the initial questions. So here's the scoop. If I miss any comments, I apologize. I will try to go back after the live and comment to you guys. And I will try to get as many as I can while I'm actually live. But I want to make sure that I address the comments that were on the initial post. Oh, I had it pulled up. Hold on. Also, feel free to share this out. Sharing really helps out my page. It helps support it. It helps me grow. It would mean a lot. And if you get the chance, follow me on Instagram. I am working so hard on growing my Instagram, you guys. We have 60,000 followers here, and on my Instagram, I'm not even to 5,000 yet. So I'm like, please, can we transfer some of you guys over? It would be amazing. Oh, hey, Susan. Thanks, Kelly. Okay. All right, let's see here. I found it. So, all right, let's just get into this. First question. Someone asked me how I am feeling. Krissa asked me, how are you feeling? So I'm feeling a lot better. This is, Parker turned 4 weeks. Actually, he's 5 weeks today. He's 5 weeks. So we're 5 weeks in. And I'm a new mom. This is my first child. So I had no idea what to anticipate when it came to the birthing process. I was terrified. Also just motherhood in general. I mean, I know a lot of people say like your motherly instincts come naturally. And I think to a certain extent that's true, but it's not fully true because I have a lot to learn. And I think that I learn new things with him every single day. I mean, he is a whole other human being. And yes, I did grow him inside of me, but we're getting to know one another. And so it's a process, and it's not something that has come like the back of my hand instantly. It's been a struggle, honestly. And the first 2 weeks were the hardest. Like, they were really, really hard. Probably the first 2 to 3 weeks. I was crying literally every single day, multiple times a day. My mom was here with us for the first 2 weeks of Parker's life. She was at the hospital when I delivered, and she came home with us to help. And seriously, when she left, I was sobbing like she had died. I'm not over exaggerating. I was crying so hard because I felt like I couldn't do it because Kyle had gone back to work. And so I literally was going to be alone with him all day long at the house. And don't get me wrong, I'm so grateful to be able to be a stay-at-home mom. I do work, but I'm able to do my work remotely because I do all of my work on social media. Right now I'm on maternity leave, thankfully. But I was terrified. I was terrified to be alone with him in the house and not have that help because I didn't know, like, would I know what he's crying about? Like, would I do everything right? Like, and then the lack of sleep literally makes you go crazy. Like, you are already hormonal from everything that you just went through. And the lack of sleep just made me even more batshit. And I was like, I don't know how I'm supposed to survive like this. There's no effing way. There's absolutely no way. And I got such little sleep in the hospital. So it was like I was playing catch up. We all were. Even my mom was super tired. And so yeah, so I'm doing a lot better now. But the first few weeks were definitely super rough. Actually, they were so rough that I immediately pretty much told my doctor I need to go back on an anti-anxiety medication. I have been open about this. If you're new to my page, you may not know, but I have an anxiety disorder. I've struggled with anxiety and depression issues since I was about 15. I'm very open about it. I'm not ashamed of it. It's a part of me. It's something that I feel like a lot of people go through. So it's not like I'm a rare, I don't know. It's not like a rare thing. But when I found out I was pregnant, I immediately stopped all of my medications cold turkey, which probably wasn't the smartest decision. I know that they say there's a lot of safe medications out there that you can take while you're pregnant, but I personally didn't feel comfortable doing that. I was like, I want to learn ways to manage this on my own if I can. And if it were to get bad enough, then of course I would look into it. But I was able to maintain my entire pregnancy, 9 months, going medication free. I'm not going to sit here and say it was easy. And then obviously after I gave birth, I immediately was like, I need help. I need something because I don't want this to get to the point where it's so bad that like I'm just digging myself deeper in a hole. You know what I mean? If you're someone who struggles with that, then you'll understand what I'm saying. So the second that I started noticing symptoms of postpartum depression and my own anxiety disorder that I already had, I was like, I need something. So I reached out to my doctor and I've been on that ever since. That was probably week 2 of bringing him home, I want to say. So it's been a couple weeks. It takes about 6 weeks for it to fully be in my system. I'm trying to think of the exact medication she put me on. I'm blanking right now. I literally was just talking to someone about this. It's a generic form of something. I think like not Xanax. I don't know. I can't remember. I'll have to let you guys know in the comments after, but I'm hoping that will help. Okay, so next question. Okay, so someone wanted to know like what a C-section feels like. Amber wanted to know because she is discussing the option of a planned C-section for herself. So I didn't plan my C-section. It was completely, yes, Megan, Zoloft, you're right. Zoloft, that's it. It was completely unplanned. Everything that I planned for my birth, none of it happened the way that I anticipated at all, period. I didn't really have, like, I didn't have like a written out plan or anything, but I had it in my head the way that I thought it would go. I thought I would deliver vaginally. I always knew that I was most likely going to get an epidural because my pain threshold is very low, but I wanted to try maybe other medications or try to push it out as long as I could naturally, just to see how far I could, you know, push myself. So basically, I guess I'll use this question as a way to talk about my birth story. I'm going to kind of be all over the place in this video because I know I said I was going to talk about my third trimester too, and I just skipped right to the questions, mom brain. But okay, so basically I woke up on Wednesday morning and it was like 5 in the morning or something. And I noticed a pancake. This is going to be TMI. Okay. So just so you know, if you're grossed out by like bodily fluids or anything to do with pregnancy or things like that, like just remove yourself. Don't even watch this because it's going to be TMI. So I woke up with like a pancake size, like wet spot in my pajama pants, but it was weird because so instantly I'm thinking, did I piss myself? Did I piss myself in bed? But there was no liquid on the mattress, so it's like if you pee, that's gonna soak through all the way. So I knew something was different. Okay, and then I go to the bathroom and I decide to smell my pajama pants. I'm like, I'm gonna smell this. Does this smell like piss? And so I smelled it. It did not smell like piss. So I'm like, okay, this isn't piss. What is this? And then I'm like, my water, did it break? Because it wasn't like a lot. It wasn't like a huge like gush or anything. It was just, like I said, it was a decent amount. It was more than I had ever noticed, because during the end of your pregnancy, you'll start like, sorry, I got in TMI, you start like leaking more towards the end. So it's like little bits and you think like, is this pee? Is this amniotic fluid? What's going on? But this was more than any amount that I had ever had. So, hey, Mel. So I call my doctor immediately and she's like, okay, what I want you to do is I want you to go for a walk. And if you're still leaking the same amount of fluid within the next like half hour to an hour, then I want you to call me back. So we went for a walk. We have a park right across the street from us. We took the dogs for a walk. And when we got back, sure enough, there was more liquid. I had changed my pants and everything, and there was more liquid. So I call her back and she's like, okay, I want you to go into labor and delivery. And I was like, holy shit. Like, I was not expecting this because I was due on July 7th was my due date. And a lot of people told me first time around, you usually go past your due date. And so at this time it was July 2nd. And it was a Wednesday. So we call my mom immediately. At this point, I wasn't having any contractions or anything like that yet. We call my mom and I'm like, okay, you need to come here. Like, we're going to wait for you before we go to the hospital. And my mom lives about 2 hours away. So I was like, that'll give me time to shower, kind of like finish getting my bag ready. I actually hopped on a live that day and I showed you guys what was in my hospital bag. And I was like all excited, freaking out, literally sweating profusely on Facebook Live, like so anxious. So my mom finally gets here. We pack up the car and we go, and I'm like, holy shit, this is go time. I started vlogging, which by the way, yes, I will have a pre-recorded vlog of the entire hospital stay for the most part. I missed some and I'm gonna have to do a recap at the end. But anyway, so we get to the hospital and they get me in the room and everything. And I will tell you this though, okay, so we get to the hospital. We didn't know what we were doing because COVID's happened, right? So we haven't been able to tour the labor and delivery. We weren't able to take any classes. Like, we had no idea where we were going. So we get there, and luckily my hospital changed their rules and I was allowed to have 2 support people, thank God. So my husband and my mom could be there. We get up to the labor and delivery floor. We don't know where to go. Well, this woman comes off the elevator and she's dressed in a really nice dress and she has like a work badge on. So we could tell she worked there, but we didn't know who she was. And Kyle was like, excuse me, ma'am, do you know, like, we're here for labor and delivery. Do you know where we need to go? And she was like, she literally didn't even look at him. And she was like, nope. And scanned her badge, walked in the door and let it slam in our face. Bitch. I was so mad. I was like, for one, I'm hormonal. For 2, rude. No. So anyway, we finally figure out where we're supposed to go, and we walk in and that same woman is there, and I see her talking to the nurses. And then she wheels by with like a baby cart or something and almost slams into my mom, like acting like she's not even standing there. Well, come to find out, we get in the room and we had a really cool nurse, okay? So, and then I asked her, I go, who was that woman when I first walked in the whatever color dress it was? I think she was in a blue dress or something. She was like, oh, that's Dr. So-and-so. I'm not going to say the name because I don't want anyone local here, like, freaking out over it. But come to find out, I look on my board in my room. That's the freaking pediatrician that's going to be overseeing me and my son. And I'm like, hell no. Like, I was like, I'm sorry, but she was so rude to me and my mother and my husband. And I told the nurse, I was like, I don't want her in here. Like, I literally don't want to see this woman. She gave such a horrible first impression. I was already super nervous. I'm a first-time mother coming in here. We have no idea what we're doing. We've never even been to this floor before because of COVID. She couldn't even look at my husband in his eyeballs or acknowledge my mother. It was just, that was our first impression, which totally sucked. Thankfully, the nurse that we had that day redeemed our experience, and she was amazing. She was super nice. So they come in, and I'm waiting for the doctor to come in, or actually, no, the nurse checked me first. She checked me first, and she, first off, hella pain. That shit sucks. Like, that was not comfortable at all, getting your cervix checked. Ooh, sorry. And so she checked me, and she was like, okay, I would be generous if I said you were at a 1. Like, she could hardly get the tip of her finger through my cervix. And so I was like, damn it, you know? And at that point, contractions had started. But they weren't super intense yet, but I could feel them coming on. So she was like, well, let's wait. We can wait like a couple hours and just monitor you, and then we'll check you again. And the doctor will be here. It was Dr. Lang, I believe. Yang or Lang, I get it mixed up. She was the one on call, which she's not my OB. My OB, since it was 4th of July weekend, wasn't in. So it was a different doctor, but it was another female, thankfully. And she was going to come in at around 11 o'clock, I think, and then she would come check me again and see if I had progressed at all. So we're in this room, and I'm bouncing on this ball. I actually had made like a boomerang and posted it. And we're like, okay, let's bounce this baby out. Like, we all said a prayer. Like, let's hope like things progress. Like, we're thinking this is go time. She comes in, same thing. So they sent me back home, and honestly, I was so emotional because yes, Lang, you guys, thank you so much. I was so excited, you know, like we were excited, and then I felt kind of stupid because I was like, okay, I just got excited for nothing. Like, my water hadn't even broke yet because they did a test too. So they checked my cervix, and then they did this like test, some sort of swab or something to tell whether it was my actual water or anything else. Well, they're like, no, your water didn't break. So I felt really dumb, and of course I'm hormonal, so I like pretty much am crying on the way home. And but Dr. Lang did say, she's like, I'll be surprised if you're not back here like by the end of the weekend. She's like, because things are starting, like you're having contractions, you know. So anyway, they had told me, my doctor told me once my contractions got to 5 minutes apart to call her again. So we go home, and within, I can't remember what time it was, early afternoon that we went home. By the time 6 o'clock rolled around, my contractions were 5 minutes apart, and they were starting to become more intense. And I was literally at home, sitting on my exercise ball, bouncing up and down, eating pineapple, doing all of the things. My mom was cooking dinner for us, and I was like, I am going into labor. Like, I need this kid out of me. I was so uncomfortable at that point. So, and again, this is my first time, so I have no idea anything to expect. And I had downloaded this like contraction app, so me and my mom are tracking it. So we get to 5 minutes apart. So we head back in, and we're like, okay, this has got to be go time. So we go back again. We have a new nurse this time, and they check me, and I'm at a 2. So I'm like, okay, that's progress. So they admit me. So we're there, and we're in. This is happening, right? So in the beginning, I'm like, okay, I can manage this. I don't need an epidural yet. Like, I got this. Like, I had been practicing my breathing. Kyle and I, even though we couldn't take any classes, we had watched all the videos on YouTube. And so I was doing the whole 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out. Like, I started to get used to knowing when the contraction was coming on, because it's almost like you can feel it tensing up in your body. And then it gets to like a really hard point where it's pretty painful, and then it goes back down. So I'm breathing through it. Well, then finally it starts progressing pretty bad. I had fallen asleep, and I want to say at this point they had me on another medication. It got to the point where I was uncomfortable enough where I wanted another medication, but not the epidural yet. And forgive me, but I'm not remembering the name of it. I want to say it was something with an S. And it was just through an IV, so they didn't have to put anything in my back for this, and it did help. So it didn't completely like numb me. I could still feel the contractions, but it helped make them way more manageable. So I actually got some sleep. So I fell asleep, and when I woke up, they were way more intense. So they came in and they checked me again, and I was at an 8. So we're like, yes, this is go time. At this point, it was the next day. It was July 3rd. Yeah, it was July 3rd, and it was around 8 in the morning, I want to say. 8 in the morning, I had progressed. Yes, Brittany, stay-all. This is all, I'm not good at medical terminology or any of that, so, but yes. So it's like 8 in the morning. I'm progressed to an 8. So I'm like, all right, I got this. Like, we're having babies soon. Like, this is exciting. And so they come back in like an hour later. I'm still at an 8. They come back in an hour later. I'm still at an 8. And this went on and on and on. And finally, I want to say maybe around 11. I can't remember the exact time, but I ended up getting the epidural. I couldn't handle the pain anymore, and I was continually stuck at 8. And I know that sometimes they say the epidural will slow things down, but I couldn't handle the pain anymore. Like, I needed something. That it was hard. The breathing wasn't, it was helping, but it wasn't getting rid of it. And so I'm afraid of this epidural. Obviously, you hear these horror stories of things not going right, and like if you move, like you could be paralyzed. So they have this guy come in, and the anesthesiologist and my nurse, who was amazing. At this point, we had another nurse now. Her name was Kathy, I believe, and she was super, super amazing. She's probably one of my favorite nurses out of the whole time. And she was holding on to me, and she's like, okay, breathe. And we were literally like forehead to forehead, and she's holding on to me, and I'm breathing, and I'm trying not to cry. So this jackass, and again, I'm not going to say any names because I know I have a lot of local people on my page, and I'm not trying to run anyone in the dirt, but this is just my personal experience, okay? So this guy, he inserts the epidural, and it hurt, like to the point that I like kind of screamed out because for one, I'm emotional, I'm hormonal, it effing hurts. There's a needle going into my spine, okay? Like, sorry that I kind of yelp out in pain. And the second that I did that, he literally called me dramatic. Not even joking. Let's just let that sink in for a second. I'm effing 8 centimeters dilated. I'm hormonal. I'm in pain. I also had a contraction because he took so effing long. So I was going through a contraction while he's inserting this in my back, having to stay still, being afraid that I could be paralyzed. And he tells me, he said, how did he say it? Something like, oh, we have a little drama queen here or some shit like that. And I literally, like, if he could have seen my eyes, there were flames coming out of them. I wanted to turn around and just karate chop this guy in the effing neck. I was so pissed. So, but I'm maintaining because obviously I'm thinking more about the pain. Well, then he's like, and this isn't meant to scare anyone, okay? So I just want to put this out there. I know I have some women that are currently pregnant that follow me. So please, if you don't want to hear like a bad experience with an epidural, like just maybe don't watch this part, a little PSA. So they, they told me, Stephanie, that they were going to wait and that I wasn't going to be doing it during a contraction. So that's what pissed me off. But anyway, he puts it in my back, and I feel like this grinding feeling. Like it feels like it's grinding in my spine. Now at this point, I am numb. I'm numb. So it's not like pain, but it was definitely uncomfortable. It was like a grinding feeling. And, okay, so then it's done. All right. So then he leaves. I'm pissed, but I'm also like, I'm relieved. Okay. So it's in, I did it. It starts relieving some of my pain, thankfully. Well, then about, I don't know, maybe an hour later or something like that, I start noticing like my arms start feeling like they're going numb. And I'm like, I'm moving my hands around, and I'm like, okay, am I like laying on this a certain way? And And then I start noticing that like the numbing feeling is going up my back and into my shoulders. So my mom, who is a nurse and she's there with us, I'm like, Mom, something's not right. Like, I don't think, like, because it's only supposed to numb you from like the waist down. So I'm like, is this normal? Like, and she's like, no, it's not. Like, I'm going to go let them know. So they let the anesthesiologist know. They shut off my epidural. And apparently what happened, and they even had like the big guy come in and like apologize to me, but the guy went, and I could be botching this, but from my understanding, the guy went too far into my back and there was some sort of spinal leak. And so it was like going up my back or something. And then they were worried that I was going to get some sort of a spinal headache or something. So they were thinking that they were going to go back in, and apparently they used some sort of like your blood to seal the leak or something. I could be like totally botching this. Sorry. I know I have a lot of nurse friends on here too. But yeah, so he screwed it up. So they turned it off. So it still lasted for a little while, and then the pain started coming back, and I was like, okay, can I have the first medication back then or something? Like, because I need something to manage this pain. And at this point, I'm still at an 8, you guys. I hadn't progressed. So then apparently there's 2 different types of ways that they can give an epidural, like once it's already in. Yes, blood patch, Stephanie. Thank you. So and I'm going to butcher this too, but apparently they can either give it to you like continuously, like it keeps flowing, or like they give it to you all at once and then it like stops or something. I don't know. So they had it continuously at first, but then when I had the issues of my back going numb in my arms, they shut it off, and then they did it the second way just to try to give me a little bit of relief because it was just unbearable at this point. Well, then the second time that they did it, it didn't work. Like at all. Like nothing went numb. And this is to the point where every time they were coming in to check me, I was in so much effing pain, you guys. My eyes were rolling back in my head. I thought that I was about ready to meet Jesus. I'm not over exaggerating. I was like, this is insanity. And so at this point, the doctor brings up a C-section, and I just start bawling. I'm like, I don't want it. I don't want the C-section. Absolutely not, because I was petrified of a C-section. And so I'm like, am I to the point where it's like dangerous? Like, do I have to get one? And the doctor was like, well, you're not to that point yet, but I just want you to be aware if you don't progress, like we might have to do this. So I'm just trying to prepare you. You might want to start talking with your husband and your mom about this and, you know, the possibility. And so I was like, well, I want to wait a little longer. And so I pushed through. Even though my epidural wasn't working, I pushed through. Basically, long story short, I made the decision to get a C-section. And I didn't get the C-section until they started it. Well, Parker was born at 3 p.m. So from 8 a.m. till around before 3, I was in labor, basically feeling it at 8 centimeters the entire time because all this stuff went awry and like nothing went the way that it was planned. So when they wheeled me in for the C-section, when I finally decided to get that, I was so afraid, you guys, that when I was laying on the table, I literally started praying to God that he would forgive me for all of my sins and take care of my son because I thought I was going to die. And it could have been a combination of me being drugged up and my hormones and not being in my right frame of mind, but I was that petrified. And so I'm like breathing, but like so they did a spinal on me to numb me for the C-section. And that actually didn't hurt. I was afraid of it, but it really didn't hurt. That was way easier than the epidural and labor and all of it. So then I really went numb. Now this was a numb that was way more intense than the epidural. Like this was, I felt like I was like half a body laying on a table, like completely went limp legs. Like, so they lift me up on the table and they're laying me down and they're getting all prepped. And I kept saying, I feel like I can't breathe. And the anesthesiologist, it was a different guy this time. He was actually really nice. It was him. And then he had this like helper guy. And he was like, you can breathe. We're monitoring your oxygen. Like you're talking, you can breathe, like you're fine. And because it kind of feels like it goes up into your chest a little bit. So then I'm talking to myself out loud and I'm like hyping myself up. I'm like, I remember looking at the ceiling and I'm like, okay, girl, you can do this. You've got this. People do this all the time. And then the helper guy's like behind me and he's like, yes, girl, you do. You've got this. It's no big deal. And he's like trying to talk me through it. And so I'm like, do you have any kids at home? And I'm talking with him about his wife and his kids and all this stuff. And I'm waiting for Kyle to come into the room. So they finally bring Kyle into the room. And at this point, they have me open and I'm just trying not to focus on the fact that my insides are being torn apart. And you don't feel anything, but you definitely feel pressure and you feel tugging. And the doctor was really great at letting me know what she was doing when she was doing it. And so I just remember looking up at Kyle. Now, mind you, again, I'm completely drugged out of my mind, okay? So I look up at Kyle and I said, don't you ever ask me to do this again. I remember that was one thing that I said to him laying on the table, and he starts laughing. So the doctor had asked me before Kyle came in, she's like, all right, do you want me to announce what you're having or do you want your husband to say it? And I said, I want my husband to say it. You know, I wanted him to have that chance. So for those of you who are new and may not know, we waited to find out the sex until the day of. So that was the one thing too, that was like helping me get through this. I'm like, okay, like that was actually one of the reasons why I chose to do the C-section, because my mom and Kyle were like, you don't have to suffer like this. Like, you could just think we could meet the baby sooner. Like, you can get this over with. You know, people schedule these things all the time. They're routine. And so I just kept thinking, okay, like, I'll get to meet my baby. Like, you know, Kyle's here, whatever. Well, then and I'm going to get emotional, but they take the baby out and we hear the baby cry for the first time. And I hear the doctor say, okay, do you want to see what you're having? And they take him and they put him over the sheet. And I didn't even see his face first. The only thing I saw were his little balls in my face. And I was like, it's a boy. Like, I'm like laying on the table. And I was so emotional and I'm crying and Kyle's simultaneously crying and laughing. And I just remember he put his forehead on my forehead and he's like, we did it. I can't believe we made him. Like, he's so beautiful. And then the one thing that really impacted me that I didn't know, and this is what's going to make me emotional talking about it, because I didn't plan to have a C-section, okay? I thought I was going to have the baby vaginally. And you always think of that moment where you give birth to your baby and they put the baby on your chest and you have that moment where you get to meet them and it's just you and the baby. And having a C-section, you don't get that. Like, they will bring the baby to you, right? So you can see the baby, of course. But it was like this, I saw him for 2 seconds and then everyone took him away. And then Kyle was gone. And I'm just laying on this table being sewn up for 45 minutes or however long it took before I got into recovery. And I didn't get that bonding moment. I didn't get that moment to hold him and to just kind of take that in, that I had just brought a life into the world. And it seriously impacted me way more than I ever thought that it would. And I feel like it made it hard for me to bond with him. Because a lot of people will say, you know, the second you lay eyes on your baby, it's like this unconditional love that you experience and it's like nothing else. And if I'm being brutally honest, I didn't have that feeling. I didn't have that moment. And then I started feeling like bad. I started feeling like, am I like a bad mom? Like, why is this not coming to me? Like, I knew that I loved him and I knew that I cared about him. And obviously I was excited, but it wasn't that feeling. The feeling that, you know, it's like you lead up to this your whole life and then the moment happens and then it's gone. And it's like, that was it. Like, that was the moment. And so I really, really struggled with that. And I felt like a piece of shit that's probably what impacted me the first 2 weeks, honestly, after bringing him home, because I don't know, I was feeling this disconnect. It was almost as if we had brought somebody else's kid home and we were babysitting. I know that sounds awful, but I was so out of it and on like pain medication and stuff from, you know, healing, that I wasn't fully grasping what was going on. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it was completely not the moment that I thought. And I think I forever will be sad about that. if I'm being honest. I mean, who knows? Maybe I'll get over it in the future. But it just wasn't what I thought. And so yeah, that impacted me a lot. So anyway, so we go into the recovery, and I finally get to hold him. And then they bring my mom in, and she gets to see, what we had, and it's all emotional and it's great. And then we go back to our room. And then from there, it was just kind of like a blur, really, because I'm trying to recover. And I basically have to have my mom and Kyle help me do everything. Like, I can't even get up and walk because I had an epidural, and I obviously just had a C-section. So I was on a catheter, which actually was really nice because I was so used to getting up in the middle of the night, being 8-9 months pregnant, peeing every 5 seconds, that it was nice to just lay there and it was doing its thing, Well, a few things. So after my surgery, I ballooned up. I never swelled my whole pregnancy. Like, maybe twice I had a little bit, but it went away. I ballooned up. And it was from all the IV fluids. So I look huge in all of the I mean, I was big already from being pregnant, but I really look big in all of my pictures from that stay in the hospital. And then afterwards, it got even worse at home. But then, so I had told the nurses that I wanted to try to breastfeed. So that was another thing that hasn't gone as planned, which, if you follow me here, I've been sharing a lot of that experience. So it hurts. That has been the hardest thing out of all. I don't know, maybe out of everything, is the breastfeeding, honestly, because I never knew. I just thought, okay, it's something that's natural. Put baby up to the boob, they suckle, there you go. Ain't no thing. Then I'll pump the rest and have a whole freezer stashed full so Kyle can feed him a bottle when he wants to, and there we go. That was my plan. Well, he had a hard time latching from the get-go, and it was hurting so bad that I was screaming in pain. I'm not over-exaggerating. I was crying, screaming, my toes were curling. And then I felt bad because it was making him cry. And then it's you tense up from the pain, and you just had a C-section. So that doesn't feel very good, because even coughing at that point hurts. And so I couldn't cough. I couldn't laugh. I couldn't do anything. So I was pumping some, but nothing was coming out. Literally, I'm talking little mists of colostrum or whatever it was. But it was not hardly anything. And so he's crying a lot, and I'm like, well, can we just supplement with some formula or something? Because I feel like he's not getting enough. And the nurses kept telling me, no, he's getting everything he needs in your colostrum. And I'm like, but there's nothing coming out. I'm literally looking in the pump when I'm pumping, and it's sprays. It's not, there's not nothing happening. And when he would latch on, half the time he wouldn't latch on properly. He was hardly on my boob for longer than 2 seconds. It took 3 people to try to figure it out, because I'm large breasted. So I had to pick up a boob. I had to smush the top of my boob down so I didn't suffocate him with my boob. I had to make sure that he had enough of the areola in his mouth. And my areola is a small pancake, and his little mouth is like a bird mouth. And so it was a lot of factors happening, and I kept asking, and I was getting frustrated, because I'm like, if I ask you to give him formula, give him effing formula so you can give, my nipples a break, because I'm healing from a C-section. Nothing's coming out anyway, so don't tell me that he's getting everything that he needs when literally nothing is coming out. And I was pissed. Well, finally, it was twisting freaking arms. I got one nurse to give him a bottle, and it immediately calmed him. And I'm like, see? He was freaking hungry, so whatever. Well, then, I guess I'll finish this part of the story. I'm going to have to finish this breastfeeding part and then come back to the final part of the hospital. Basically, when we came home, I tried to breastfeed again for another 2 days, and it was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. And then when we took him in for his checkup a couple days later, he had lost 12% body weight. Anything over 10%, they're concerned. And our doctor had told us at that appointment, if he doesn't gain weight back within the next 48 hours, he'll be admitted to the hospital. So I immediately start bawling my eyes out. And I know that babies lose weight after, it's normal. I found that out after birth, they will lose weight, but he lost more than what he was supposed to. And it was because basically he was starving because my milk hadn't come in yet. There was nothing happening. Even the colostrum that was there was so minimal, it was not enough. And so I was pissed. I was really pissed that the nurses like made me feel like I had no other option. I didn't like that. And I understand like where they're coming from in a sense. But I just didn't like it. It was a bad experience. And then it made me so mad at the thought that that my child could be readmitted to the hospital because he wasn't getting enough. And it made me feel like a shitty mom, and it just made me mad altogether. So after that, because Kyle and my mom were kind of like pushing too for me to like, okay, like you don't want to confuse him, so let's just stick with what the nurses said. And I was getting so pissed. Well, finally, after that appointment, I was like, I told you guys, and I had like a big attitude. I was like, don't ever tell me again what is supposed to, like, I know what's going on with my son. I was like, my intuition was right on this. He is losing too much weight. He's not eating enough. There is not enough happening right now. And like some women, their milk comes in and it's perfect and it's great, but that didn't happen for me. So we immediately started supplementing with formula, and we have been ever since. I will get back into my breastfeeding journey in a second because I want to finish the hospital experience, but that was that part. Well, then they come in later on that evening, and we have this nurse, and she tells us that he has jaundice. And basically she has this big light that needs to come into the room, and he's got to stay in this box light for the next 24 hours until he can be retested. And we can't hold him or touch him or anything unless we're feeding him or changing him. So I start crying because, of course, I just had my child. I didn't get that moment of holding him because I ended up having a C-section that wasn't planned. And now you're telling me I can't hold him for 24 hours, and he's obviously going to be crying this entire time because babies don't like that box. It's like 90 degrees in there. They have to wear these little like goggle things over their eyes because they can't have the light on their eyes. And I was emotional. Well, this other lady comes in to take blood or something or do vitals. I can't remember what it was. And she asked me why I'm crying. So I tell her, and that nurse is still in the room. And I'm like, well, you know, we found out that he has jaundice. And like, again, like I had jaundice as a kid. I know that it's fairly common, but it was the point of him being in that box for that long that got me all emotional. And so anyway, the lady was like, oh, like, don't worry. Like, this is pretty common, whatever. And she was nice. Well, then, the lady goes, it's not that big of a deal, but in a nice way. Well, then the nurse turns and she's like, oh, but so-and-so, whatever her name is, she's like, it is a big deal though. It's a really big deal. Like super sarcastic. Like her tone was literally like she was mocking me and me crying at the fact that my son had jaundice and had to be in this box. And so I was immediately put off and like pissed at this woman. Not to mention, right before that, when she had come in, she's talking about this box. Okay, so it's large, and the room that they put us in was super small. Well, we had the couch that they had there, and Kyle had bought an air mattress. So we had an air mattress blown up so he could, he ended up giving the air mattress to my mom, but they needed places to sleep. Well, she comes in when she's explaining about the light, and she goes, and technically, you know, after 8 o'clock, visitors aren't really supposed to be here. And she looks at my mom, and I immediately whipped my head, and I was like, first off, I was told that I'm allowed to have 2 support people. My mom lives 2 hours away. She is not leaving. And the lady was like, oh, well, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying we need to come up with a solution together. And I said, yeah, well, the solution is we'll take down the air mattress, and that will make room. My mom's not going anywhere. Like, I felt like she was trying to like allude to the fact that like my mom shouldn't be there. And she was just, that specific nurse, we did not vibe. Everything that she said had a weird tone. Anytime that I would ask for formula for my baby, she was giving me the runaround. Anytime I had a concern about something, she was coming back with like, I don't even know how to describe it, honestly, but it made me feel so uncomfortable, and it pissed me off because this is the last thing that I want to deal with. This is the last thing I want to deal with. I'm already in pain. I'm already drugged up. I already went through a traumatic birthing experience. I'm a new mom. I don't need your attitude. I don't need you trying to tell me that I don't know this, that, and the other, and you know everything because you've worked here for 40 years. Like, take your bitch attitude and GTFO. I wanted a new nurse so bad. And by the end of the experience, my mom and Kyle both said, like, well, we think she was trying to get you to like her because she was trying to joke with you, and you could just sense like the tension. You could tell you didn't like her. And I'm like, well, good. I hope she knows that, because she was freaking rude. And I don't have the time for it. So this was McLaren in Bay City, Stacy. McLaren, Bay City. And you know, I don't know, like maybe had my birthing experience been different, maybe I wouldn't have been so sensitive to things. I have no idea, but it was just, you know, sometimes you just don't vibe with people, and like their tone is super bitchy and everything they say just pisses you off. Like that was this woman, and it sucked because I had some really good nurses, and I kept thinking, I'm like, okay, I hope I wake up tomorrow and have such and such nurse. And then it was like, no, it was her. And I'm like, so I have to deal with her again for this entire day, really? So anyway, after we did the light, for the night, which by the way was very difficult. I really feel for people that after going through that, I was thinking about people that have to like have their kids in the NICU. I'm like, if I can't handle him in a Jaundice box for one night, I don't know how parents do it. So I give mad props to those who have to go through that, because that was so hard on me emotionally. But the next day he got tested again, and his levels had gone to a range where they felt he could go home, but they wanted him to come back in 2 days later to get, or maybe it was a day later. No, it was 2 days later. 2 days later, because he was born on Friday the 3rd. And then they wanted us to go and see his doctor on Monday. And his doctor's my doctor. I took him to my family doctor. So anyway, he had to get labs again to be retested to make sure his levels were going down. Well, when we took him in for another lab test, which by the way, totally sucks. So for this specific lab test, they like poked their little heel, and he cried, and it was so sad. And then they have to like scrape it to get blood out of it. And he's just like screaming bloody murder. I cried with him. It was terrible. But his levels weren't going down at that point. They went back up or something. I can't even remember. It was such a blur. But basically, they wanted him to be on a light at home. So this light was, they call it a blanket, but it was not a blanket. It was like this obnoxious piece of plastic that like wraps around like their midsection basically. And it has this huge tube, and that's what gets like the light into it, I believe, or some ventilation or something. But it's pretty heavy. And we had to keep him on this day and night. Like we couldn't take it off him. And it sucked because we'd go to pick him up, and he was so little that it would slide up and get into his armpits. And it was pretty like hard plastic. So he would cry because it was rubbing on his armpits. So finally I got pissed, and I started taking it off of him. I kept it on his skin, but I took it off, like wrapped around him. Oh crap. Sorry, I'm knocking stuff over. But what I would do is I would like take it off, and it was basically like this wide and like this long. It was like a long piece of whatever that just wrapped around literally just the midsection. So I would take it off, and if I was holding him like this, I would lay it like on his chest, and then I would hold him like this, and then I'd put it on his back. So I was making sure that he was still getting it. And then of course at night we rewrapped it on him, of course. But we also put him in the window. And then at first my husband was like not happy about it. He was like, you know, we need to do what they're saying. And I'm like, I'm telling you, it's causing him pain, and I'm not doing that. So we'll ask the doctor about it, because we were going in the very next day. And the doctor was like, that's fine. Like, as long as he's getting the light on him, whatever way you do it is totally fine if it's causing him to be uncomfortable. So luckily a few days later, we were able to get rid of that stupid light. I hated it so much because his levels went back down, thankfully. And I still take him outside to do walks around the yard to get a little sunshine, or put him in front of a window just because I'm a little nervous about that. I don't know when, like, if that could come back or what. But that helped clear that up. So yeah, that was my birthing experience. Sorry, that question took a long time. Because that was, yeah, it was kind of shitty. Like, me looking back and reflecting on it, it was kind of shitty. And I feel like that really sucks, because it's supposed to be like the best day of your life. And, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, I got my son out of it, so it was totally worth it. And I would do it over again a million freaking times. But it really is true when they tell you birth plans, throw it out the window, because most likely things aren't going to go the way that you think that they're going to go. That was definitely true and accurate for me. So, okay, let's get to another question. And again, for those of you just tuning in, I'm just trying to get through these questions. So I know I've missed a lot of comments on here. I'm not ignoring you guys. I will come back and comment back. Okay, so let's see here. Pregnancy and anxiety. People want to know what helped and what didn't. This is a question from Stacy. She asks, is there anything that you wish you would have done differently when it came to your anxiety? Basically, any advice on pregnancy and high anxiety. So like I said, I chose not to take medication during my pregnancy for my anxiety. Again, I know that there are safe options. So it's something that if you want to do it, go for it. There's no shame in that. But I chose to try to handle it myself. I used a lot of meditation apps. I did a lot of breathing techniques. I just basically tried really hard, which this became really hard in March when we had this pandemic, start. I tried really, really hard to focus on positive things. I didn't always follow that. There were definitely times where I totally stressed out for sure. I mean, we had to cancel our baby shower. I was devastated, bawled my eyes out. I was terrified of the virus. At one point they said that pregnant women were way more vulnerable. Then another point they're saying no, they're not. And it was very confusing. So basically meditation, prayer, and breathing techniques, as cheesy as that sounds. And just trying to get up and do something, even if it's just walking around the house or walking around the yard, that was pretty much the extent of my physical activity during my pregnancy, especially towards the end, because I was so uncomfortable. And you walk 2 feet and you're out of breath. So I couldn't really do full-blown exercising. I know some women do that when they're pregnant, but for me, I hadn't been exercising before pregnancy, so my body wasn't used to it already. So yeah, I mean, I think everyone's different. You just have to, it's all trial and error when it comes to anxiety. What works for me may not work for you. Journaling is another thing that I started too. That was very helpful because I felt like I could get my emotions out on paper. And also some of the posts that I do here is it's a way for me to blog. It's a way for me to journal online, I guess, even though I'm not writing it out, I'm typing it out, and sharing my experience was very therapeutic for me. I know it's helpful for a lot of people here. Have told me oh, I'm so glad that you share those kind of things and that's helped me during my pregnancy. But you guys don't understand how helpful it's been to me and my anxiety, because sometimes, when it comes to anxiety, it's in your head, right? And then it manifests into your body. You feel chest pains, you feel like you can't breathe, and it can get very scary. But when you can take those thoughts that are in your head and put them out on paper or type them out in a post, then you can visualize it. At least that's how I feel. I can see my thoughts out in the open, physically. And it allows me to process it better for some reason. I can reread through those emotions, and then I can try to look at it from a third person point of view. If that's the right wording, I don't know, but, and try to break down my emotions, break down the situation that I'm currently facing or whatever it may be, and think, okay, what would I say to a friend if they came to me and told me they were feeling this way, and kind of treat it like that. That has been super helpful for me. Okay, so Katrina asked, how has the transition been adding a baby into the mix? Complete honesty and transparency. I'm nervous to bring a baby into our already busy life. It's been hard, not gonna lie. It's been incredibly difficult. I know there are women out there that have 8 kids and they look flawless and they seem to juggle it all beautifully. I am not one of those women. I struggled, like I said, especially the first 2 weeks of him being home. I didn't think I could do it. I questioned whether or not I should be a mother. I literally thought to myself, and this is going to sound shitty, but it's honest. If you want honest transparency, I literally was praying to God one day and thought to myself, was this the right choice? Becoming a mother? Was this, I didn't know if this was the right timing. Why can't I handle this? I'm almost 30 years old and I feel completely out of control. And it's overwhelming. It's so overwhelming because this person needs you 24/7. And you're trying to also heal your own body. and you're also trying to come to terms with everything in your own head and your emotions, and it's so much more than just, oh, a cute little sleeping baby, and and then add in breastfeeding issues to the mix and a C-section scar, or if you delivered vaginally, I'm sure that healing process isn't fun either. And then on top of it too, like, so we came home from the hospital. The day we came home, we had a ton of family come see him. Like, it was just our immediate family, but we have a large family. And so there was a lot of people here that day. And I thought before giving birth that I could handle that that's something that I wanted. And don't get me wrong, I was so grateful that they were excited to meet him, and they came with gifts, and they came like all excited, and they were so sweet. But I was so emotional that it was way too emotionally taxing on me. And I felt like a zombie. I didn't feel like myself. I was crying. I was like going in the room to try to breastfeed and like crying while other people were out here like having conversations. I felt completely removed. And then it was a really weird feeling too. It was like, we came home, like, okay, so we left our home in such a hurry because things happened before I thought they were going to happen. And I never took that moment to like stand in our house and say, this is the last time we will be in this house, just you and I. I didn't have that moment. We never got, some people take baby moons or whatever those are called, where they go on like a little last minute vacation before baby comes. Obviously with Corona, we didn't get a chance to do that. So we left the house one way and we came home and it was completely different. And I didn't feel like I was at home. And it was the weirdest feeling because, hi.
Say hello.
Oh, you want to bring him in right now? Okay, sorry, I guess I'm getting interrupted, you guys. But here.
I'll hold him.
Oh, you don't want me to hold him?
Mm-mm.
Hi, baby. He's sleepy.
Say hi.
Say hi, Parker. This is Parker and my husband, Kyle, for those of you who don't know.
See if I can get a better angle.
Here. Well, let me take him and I can. Come here, Bubby. You're a sleepy boy. Say hi. He's probably not going to like this light. Hi, everybody. Hi. Say hello. You look a little cranky. You look a little cranky? He's in his little sleep sack. Hi, Bubby. Oh, my goodness. Say hello. This is Parker. Parker Jeffrey. He's a sleepy boy. Okay, you can take him. You can take him.
Okay, let's go. We're watching Cold Case Files.
Oh, bye, Bubby. Have fun at boy time. Go on, girls. Get.
Let's get out.
Go on.
Come
on. Okay. Sorry, I wasn't anticipating bringing him in right then. I thought we would do that at the end, but thank you. Anyway, so back to what I was saying. It was like I came home and basically it didn't feel like home for the first few weeks. It really didn't. There was baby things everywhere. There was lack of sleep. There is a new human. There's a new human in the house. And I'm sorry. I don't care what anyone says. I know I grew him. I know he is my son, but he is a new person that I need to get to know. He has his own personality and his own little things. And then what people don't tell you too is you come home as a different person. I came home with not only a husband, but a father to my child. I came home as not only myself, but a mother. So you come home with all new people, like all new surroundings. And it's a lot. And I feel like a lot of people glamorize it and they try to act like, oh, like I'm, we just had our child and we're so happy and don't get me wrong, like there is happiness. I believe that these things can coexist. You can simultaneously be ecstatic and super happy about meeting your child, but also sad and like overwhelmed and all those other emotions because you're learning to adjust. And I think that's normal. Like after being a little more open about my experience and talking about that with people, you would be surprised at how many people actually experience that, but they don't talk about it because they're like, well, it's like embarrassing. I don't want to like make people think I'm a bad mom or I'm not grateful for having my child. And, I think people carry a lot of guilt because children are a blessing. At the end of the day, being able to have a healthy pregnancy and give birth is an amazing thing. It is. It's a God-given, amazing miracle of life. Like, it's beautiful. But I don't think that acknowledging the negative emotions that can come along with it takes away from that at all. And I think that we as women and mothers need to be more open to being honest with one another and talking about that, because that's where postpartum depression sets in. People feel like they can't talk about it. They feel like people are going to judge them or think that they're like a bad mom or ungrateful for their child. And I'm sorry, but I call bullshit. Like, that is complete and utter bullshit if anyone ever makes you feel that way, because it's natural. You are a new human. The second that you come back in those doors of your home after giving birth, you are not the same. I remember looking at myself in the mirror and just not even recognizing myself. And it's a scary feeling. It's scary at first. You know, you have to take time to get used to it. And I'm still getting used to it. I'm only 5 weeks into this, you guys. I'm not fully even recovered from my C-section. I'm not fully recovered from my traumatic experience, you know? So that's the truth of it. It wasn't rainbows and butterflies. Was there happiness? Yes. Was there smiles? Yes. Were there tears? Hells yeah. Was there a lack of sleep? 1000%. And everyone's experience is different, okay? So you may be one of those lucky people that gets that immediate bonding feeling with your child. You may be one of those lucky women that comes home and you are just on an all-time high and you adjust super easy. But for me, I was never around babies. I've never been around newborns. I'm not one that babysat a whole ton. It's not something that, like, you know how there's some people that just naturally, like, they've always been designed to be a mom. That was not me. So actually, if anything, that's my husband. He's way better with babies than I am. So that was another thing I was battling. I almost like would get defensive if he would try to like correct me on something, because I'd be like, wait a second, I'm his mom. Don't tell me. Like, and I had to learn to kind of, and I still think I'm learning that a little bit, to tone it back a little bit, because at the end of the day, he does have more experience with babies, you know, and if he ever tells me something, it's not coming from a place of trying to judge my parenting abilities. And I think we're both learning that about each other though too, because he gets a little defensive with me if I'm like, hey, hold him this way or don't do that. Like, we're learning each other as mom and dad. And that's something too in your relationship that I think is, I don't want to know if I want to call it a struggle, but it's a learning curve. It's something completely different, because you know your person is boyfriend first, then fiance, then husband. Daddy is that's a whole new ball of wax. Okay, so next up. Do you think having Parker, this is from Carmela, do you think having Parker will change the focus of your social media platform, or will you balance sharing the beauty business and mom life? I definitely want to try to balance. Okay, so I know that right now it's been a lot of Parker, because that's my life right now. Like, I haven't been doing a whole ton of makeup. This is the first time that I put, and this is very minimal makeup, but this is the first time I've put any makeup on, like I said, since his newborn session almost a month ago. So right now it is a lot of Parker. Right now it is a lot of mommy posts, but I still intend, when I get better and I get more of a routine and he's sleeping more, I still intend on doing makeup. I still want to do some fun character looks for Halloween this year. Like, I still want to show you guys fashion, you know, like when I'm comfortable. I mean, my body, I showed you guys my body the other day. I took a picture of my postpartum body right now. I hate it. I'm not happy with it. I feel like I look like shit. But I'm trying to learn to appreciate what my body just did and give myself a little bit of grace. So right now, it's going to be probably a little more mommy geared. Honestly though, like, to me, I feel like my social is just wherever I'm at in life. When I started this, you guys met me when Kyle and I were newly engaged and I was planning a wedding. And then that's what it was. It was all wedding stuff, right? And then it moved from, okay, now we're married and we're buying our first house. And then it just kind of evolves with wherever I'm at. So I know there's probably a lot of people that were here initially for the makeup. And you're probably like, what the hell? Like, I'm not seeing much makeup recently. And if you know, mom posts aren't your vibe and you don't want to stay here anymore, that's fine. But I do intend on bringing that back at some point. I will never give up my love for makeup and beauty. I'm a girly girl to my core. But yeah, I just need to get back to a place where I have the energy and the motivation. I mean, battling postpartum depression, lack of sleep and all of that, it makes it kind of difficult to want to like get up and do your makeup, you know, do a full face beat. I really, when I got leaking tits and I'm bleeding and I have spit up on me and my kid hasn't slept, the last thing that I want to do is a smoky eye. Thank you, Melanie. You're so sweet. Thank you. Okay, so let's see. Next question. Was it as scary as you thought? And then that's from Lachey. And then what the pain is like. Okay, so I'm going to kind of combine those. Was it as scary as I thought? In hindsight, for the C-section, no. If I ever have children again, which I have no idea if I will schedule a C-section, which I know sounds nuts because I was so against it. I was so like, absolutely not. That is terrifying, blah, blah, blah. Once it was all said and done, honestly, the doctor did a great job. I was completely numbed. And the thought of not having to go through labor is exciting to me because I feel like that was the worst part. And maybe it's because I got stuck, honestly. Like if I would have not gotten stuck at 8 centimeters, if I would have progressed and it would have been like a push, he's out, then maybe I would have preferred a vaginal delivery. And I know some people will do a vaginal delivery after C-section. That is not me. I will not be one of those. I will not go through that pain again if I can help it. Now knowing my body and knowing that it didn't perform the way that it should have, I just don't think that that's for me, which is crazy. Because like I said, I always thought in my head that I would deliver vaginally and that's how it would work. But it didn't work out that way. So no, it was not as bad as I thought. The pain of labor was intense. It was. Now, everyone's different though. Everyone's pain tolerance is different. So you got to take this with a grain of salt, okay? My experience is not going to be your experience, okay? So I want everyone to know that. I'm not trying to tell you that just because I felt like my vagina and my asshole were the fiery pits of hell burning, that you're going to feel that way. Because that's honestly what it feels like. It feels like a burning pressure, like just, I don't even know. I don't know, but it was so weird. Towards the end of it, I started feeling it in my ass. I was like, what? Like, what is going on? Like, it was just a lot of pressure. And I started to feel like I wanted to push, but I wasn't at that point yet. I wasn't fully dilated yet. And so it started feeling almost like I felt like I had to take a massive shit. That's one thing I will say. Okay, if you guys have been on my page for a while now, you know I was so afraid to shit giving birth. I was so afraid. I was like, oh my God, if I poop, I will just be mortified. And everyone kept telling me like, oh, they see it all the time. It's no big deal. But I was like, okay, they may see it all the time, but I don't just shit in front of a room full of people all the time. So looking back on it, yes, I will be embarrassed. The C-section, I didn't have to worry about it. I never pooped on the table. So that's one thing I can say, I guess is a positive. I didn't poop. I didn't poop on the table. That's my positive takeaway from my birth experience. Okay, let's see. Next question. Oh my gosh, my iPad. Okay. What did you not use in your hospital bag? Let me think. Because I didn't use, oh no, I did use that. I think I used everything, honestly. No, I didn't use the cute socks that I packed because they had socks at the hospital that they gave me with grippies on the bottom because I had some cutie ones that I brought with me. At least I don't think I did. Maybe I did after I showered. I don't know. Honestly, it was such a blur and I didn't really overpack, you guys. I did use my makeup. It was very minimal, but I did pack makeup and I did use that when Kyle and I took pictures after he was born and I wore my robe and he wore his little, why am I not thinking of the right word? His little swaddle. And Kyle wore his shirt. We were like matchy match. I did put on a little bit of makeup. So I did use my makeup. I pretty much used everything in my bag, I think. because I didn't overpack. I know some people do overpack. How was birthing during COVID? It was fine, honestly. We did have to wear masks if we left the room. If we were out in the hallway, we had to wear masks, which we did go out in the hallway a couple times because after I gave birth, I had to do laps around and like walk and stuff. But in the room, they didn't make us wear masks, which I was really grateful because I had heard in some hospitals they were making people wear masks. And I'm like, if they make me wear a mask while I'm in labor, that is going to be really shitty, but they didn't. So thank God. I will say, I think going back to the hospital after, like for his labs, that made me nervous. But when we were there actually giving birth, I was fine. Let's see. Why did they want to do a C-section? Because I got stuck. I got stuck at 8 centimeters. And my body wasn't progressing, so I had to get a C-section. I need to know about the Hakka Pump. Okay, so here's something that doesn't have to do with my birth experience. The Hakka Pump is awesome. I think I'm gonna come up with a list of like postpartum mommy must-haves if you guys are interested, and I'll link it to my Amazon storefront. The Hakka is basically, it's a handheld like silicone type thing. I should have grabbed it and brought it in here, but you fold it out and then you stick your nipple in it. Like you squeeze the bottom of it, you stick your nipple in it, and then you like pull that flat back over and you let go, and it like suctions your nipple like into the actual thing. And then basically any letdown that you have, it will collect. So for instance, if you are breastfeeding on one side, usually one side of your boob is leaking, or if you're pumping on one side, one boob leaks. So this is the way to collect that. Or if you're super like over engorged, which like that first, I want to say about a week in, I had a day where I was very engorged and my boobs hurt so bad. They felt like rocks. They hurt really, really bad. I was taking lots of hot showers and putting like hot towels on my boobs and stuff, but that helped relieve some of that pressure. It's not meant to take the place of an actual breast pump, but it's definitely a good way to collect any extra. I usually will get about an ounce or 2 from using my Hakka, which is really awesome for me. So yeah, that's a product that I definitely recommend, and they're super cheap. What is your final thought on the Gauze undies? I had talked about that. So I hated them. I know a lot of people are like, oh, they're so comfy. No. Okay. Yes, maybe they have stretch. I will give you that. They have stretch. But I did not feel like I had enough coverage as far as like I was going to be bleeding out of those things. Also, the pads that they gave me, now I think this could be different depending on the hospital that you deliver at, but the hospital that I delivered at, the pads that they gave me were literally no different than a period pad. It was not a big thick pad like I was told I would get. It was just like a regular overnight pad that I would use normal on my period, and I'm like, what the hell? So I had to layer them up. I basically had like 3 pads and 1 thing inside of those, and then I had Kyle go get me basically some granny panties. They're like, actually I'll show you, hold on, I got a pair right here. These are the undies and I'm still wearing them. Okay, I'm still wearing them. They're Fit for Me, Fruit of the Loom granny panties. They huge. But it basically goes up to like my waist. But I would wear the mesh underwear with pads on, and then this over the mesh underwear to kind of hold everything in. Then once I got done with the mesh underwear, I ended up using adult diapers because I didn't like the mesh underwear. So I had Kyle pick up, what was the brand? They're like cutesy ones. They're like peach with like flowers on them, like Discreet. I think that the Discreet is in the names, like Always Discreet or something like that. And they are basically women's adult underwear. And you wouldn't, depending on how much you're bleeding, they pretty much have a pad already in them, so you don't necessarily need an extra pad, but I just wanted the extra pad, so I had a pad inside of the adult diapers that already had a pad in them, and then my granny panties over top to hold it all together. And then my what do you call it, binder that they gave me. So I have just been completely sealed up, making sure nothing's leaking out, because I mean, the healing process is pretty brutal. And again, it's going to vary from person to person, but I didn't want any blood coming out, like, anywhere. Okay, are you one and done, or do you want more kids? And I think that's the last question. That's actually a good question to end this on. I don't know. So Kyle and I had spoken when I was pregnant about the idea of having a child like within a year of Parker. So we would have them close together and just get it over with. We could get them out of diapers around the same time, like blah, blah, blah. As of now, hell to the no, because Parker is enough for me right now. And who knows, maybe once he gets a little older and he's sleeping a little longer and I get a little more experience under my belt, I might feel differently. But I had said hell to the no. Like the first 2 weeks, I was like, I don't want another kid. This is it. This is like, I'm done. We have one child. The anxiety that I have with him, that's another thing I guess I didn't touch on with the anxiety too. And I'm still battling this. It's not as bad as it was in the first 2 weeks, but it's like anyone even holding him, I'm like watching like a hawk, like making sure like, oh, is your hand under his neck? Like, oh, hold him like this. Like, I don't trust anyone, like hardly anyone, maybe my mom and Kyle. I think that's about it. I don't know, maybe 2 other people. But I would not trust anyone to like watch him for an extended period of time. Like and that's one thing that kind of sucks, because you're so, you need sleep, right? And so like people offer to help and that's nice. But when like you're so anxious about like, how are they going to handle him? Are they going to do this the right way? And that sounds totally like not normal, but it is, I think, because I hear a lot of mothers experience that. And I think it's gotten a lot better now. But the first few weeks, I was really bad with it. I didn't want anyone holding him. I was okay with my mom helping, but I didn't want anyone else helping. I did not want to accept help because I didn't know how they were going to handle him. And what if there was an accident? Like, what if I fell asleep and then they tripped on something and fell and dropped him, or they laid him down and put a blanket in his crib and he smothered to death? Like, all this crazy shit would like get in my head, and I would be thinking like that I couldn't trust anyone with my baby. And I'm still battling that, but it's just not as intense as it was the first few weeks. So the first few weeks, I definitely was like, no, I don't want another kid. Do not want another kid. This is too much anxiety for me. Like, I couldn't imagine having to worry about another kid on top of this one. Like, no way. Now that I'm 5 weeks in, I don't want to say never say never, but I definitely know that I don't want to have them back to back. Like, Parker will have to be, like at least 3, if not older, before we have another one. He'll have to be pretty independent, because I just don't know how, like, I kind of, in a way, I mean, I guess you wouldn't know any better if you were someone who had twins, because that's all you're used to, but I feel bad for people that have multiples and have to come home, like quadruplets. I couldn't even imagine. How the hell? How did they do that, you know? Or people that have them back to back, which I know a lot of people that have done it and they've made it through, but I'm like, holy shit, this is a lot harder than I thought it would be. A lot harder. I never thought motherhood would be easy, but hell no. Rachel says, Lennox is 4 months and I'm still like that. I probably will be too, Rachel, honestly. Like, the thought of Parker ever staying overnight with anyone, hell to the no. And Kyle had said something recently about like, oh, like I'll be excited when we can like go out on a date again. And like, I'm like, yeah, who are we going to leave him with to watch? Who's going to watch him? Like, I'm not leaving him with anyone right now. Like, I don't know when I'm going to feel comfortable. Like, I'm okay now when I'm in a room with someone, if they're holding him, like I'm a lot better now. But like leaving him with someone right now, not even absolutely not, won't happen right now. And I don't know when it'll happen. And I mean, it also has a lot to do with the pandemic too. It's not just my anxiety. I don't want a lot of people around him. We're very severely limiting who is coming to meet him, when they're allowed to come and meet him. Like, I'm literally making anyone in our family, any friends, if you've been to an event or you've been to a crowded bar, don't talk to me about seeing him until you've literally not been to anything for at least 2 weeks before you come see him. And I know people probably think I'm batshit, and they're probably upset that they haven't been able to see him or meet him yet, but I'm not risking it. And I know that they claim that there's studies out there that like kids aren't as susceptible to it, or the mortality rate in infants is very low. But here's the thing. They've been so up and down with what they want and what they don't. And 1 minute masks work, the next minute they don't. 1 minute this group of people is susceptible, 1 minute they're not. So I don't trust it. And there's too many unknowns. So I have been extra strict. And then when they do come, if they haven't been to an event or a crowded bar or a restaurant or whatever in 2 weeks, and we allow them to come, they have to immediately wash their hands and sanitize, and they have to wear a mask if they're going to hold him. I don't make them wear a mask in the house. But if they're going to hold him and be close to him, you're putting a mask on before you even touch him. So I am very, very strict on that. And it's just, I think that the pandemic has not helped the anxiety. I want to say maybe if this were a regular world that we were living in and I was going through a normal postpartum time, that maybe I wouldn't have as strong of anxiety as I do now. I want to believe maybe it would be easier, but who knows? Who knows? I have no idea. Someone said the second kid is much easier. You know what to expect. That makes sense. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not ruling it out. I'm not saying like absolutely not no, like I was the first couple weeks, but not hopping on that train anytime soon. I also kind of want, oh, Rachel says, you're better than I was. We didn't have anyone come into our home until he was 2.5 months. We literally had my parents, Kyle's grandma, and my mother and father-in-law, and my siblings the day we brought him home from the hospital. They all wore masks, they all sanitized, but that was too much. I look back on it and I wish that we wouldn't have done that. And again, it's nothing against them, but it was too much for me emotionally. I didn't realize how tired and how emotional and just like honestly distraught I was going to be coming home from all of that. And yeah, but a lot of them haven't seen him since then. But we're slowly starting to allow in very small, like 1 person, 2 people at a time to come. But I asked them, have you been anywhere in the last 2 weeks? If you've traveled, it's out of the question. Don't even ask me. We had a family member that just showed up one night and wanted us to like take him over so people could see him at a birthday party through the car. And Kyle was like, absolutely not. Like I was in the shower. I didn't even know. And when he came out, I was like, thank God you said no, because I would have flipped. Like, it's not worth it right now. And it's not that we, in an ideal situation, I would love to have, especially since we didn't get to have a baby shower, I would love to have like a meet and greet where all of our family could, meet him. We could have a barbecue. Like, I would love a scenario like that, but I can't, I'm just not comfortable with it. I mean, when Kyle gets home from work, he has to immediately change his clothes. Like, he's not allowed to touch him until he changes his clothes. Same with when we go to the store. Usually 99% of the time it's Kyle going to the store. I don't do any of our shopping really, but there have been a couple times now that I can drive again, that I will have Kyle, stay with Parker. And like today I ran to the bank and I went and I got a Starbucks, and that was my mommy time. And then I came home. I didn't go in anywhere though, but we will change our clothes immediately if we go anywhere, coming back in the house, and wash our hands, sanitize. So yeah. Oh, Piper didn't see anyone at all until she was 6 weeks old. And I think a lot of people are pretty understanding about that too, honestly. I was really nervous before having him that we were going to get a lot of slack from family. And there have been a couple scenarios where people have been kind of pissy. But for the most part, everyone's been pretty understanding. And honestly, even if they do get mad, I really don't care, because my only thought is keeping him safe. I'm not necessarily super concerned about me contracting the virus. Like, I believe that me and my husband both would be able to fight it off. But my concern is us transferring it to him, and he's so tiny. And again, I know that there's studies out there that claim, but they're so back and forth with everything right now. It's just so up in the air, and I don't want to risk it. Don't want to risk it. Teresa says, I found the third easier than the second because I knew those rest times wouldn't be there. Haha, I knew I would just constantly be exhausted. Plus the two older could help entertain each other. That makes sense too. And I feel like if we were to have a second child and Parker was older, he could be like a little helper, you know, because basically when Kyle's gone to work, I'm home with Parker all day. And during my recovery, at least, we hardly leave the room, honestly. There's been a couple times where I've gotten him out in his little pack and play thing that we have and brought him into our sitting room just to get a new change of scenery. But we pretty much are laid up in the bed, and yeah, we hang out in there, and I read him books, and I watch Netflix on my iPad, and we sing songs, and we snuggle, and I change shitty diapers in his bassinet, and that's like my entire day in between trying to get some type of naps in because he's up every 2 hours right now for feeds. And then sometimes, like, there's been a couple nights where I swear to God he was up every 30 minutes. And those were the nights where, like, Kyle, so our thing is when Kyle goes to work, right now, he actually sleeps. We have a bed in this room right now, my glam room, which it was never in here before, but we brought it up here when my mom was staying. Kyle will sleep in here when he works during the week, and I'm in the room with Parker, and I get up with him during the night, and I'm with him all day. Kyle will come in at 6 in the morning before he gets ready for work, and he takes him for a morning feed and then allows me to kind of get like maybe 45 minutes of rest. And then when he gets home from work, he usually takes him and I will have a nap. Then now Kyle's going to be working on Fridays again, but he has been having his Fridays off during the summer. So usually Thursday nights, Kyle will take over and he wakes up with him during the night. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then I go back to, like, we just kind of switch on and off. So that's been very helpful. I mean, I will literally brag about Kyle and shout his praises to the moon on how helpful he's been with our son. Like, it's crazy because I hear of some women in some situations where, like, the father just expects the mom to just, that's your duty, you do that. And it's like, no, we both created this human. We are both parents. You're not a babysitter, you're a father. And it's never even been an argument with him. I've never once gotten flack. Like, even right now, like, he's chilling with him while I do a live. It wasn't even a second thought. I'm like, hey, I'm going to do a live. He's like, okay, I got Parker, like, no big deal. Or if he knows that I'm really stressed out, like if Parker is having like a rough day where he's super whiny or has hardly gotten any sleep, he will come home from work and he'll be like, let me take him so you can get some rest or take a shower, you know. And I'm so grateful because I know that not everybody has that situation, and I can't imagine. Oh my gosh, I have like a whole new respect. First off, I have a whole new respect for mothers in general, especially my own. But secondly, I have a whole new respect for single moms. Holy shit. You guys are freaking rock stars. Because if I didn't have his help, what the hell? Like, how do people do this? I don't know. Maybe I'm being over dramatic or something. And again, maybe it's because I'm still so new and fresh to this, but like, this shit is hard. This shit is hard. Oh, Stephanie, I'm sorry to hear that. Stephanie and Laura both said that they're one of those moms that had to do it all with the exception of a few times. I am so sorry. And that's not, you know, by me saying that about Kyle, I'm not ragging on anyone else's situation. Like, people have their own setups and their own situations. And I'm not saying, you know, anyone's relationship is bad or anything like that. But I just appreciate the help because the thought of having to do it all alone, woo, girl, no, I could not. Laura says, you never know what your parents have done for you until you have kids. That is 1000% true. My parents always told me that too, growing up. They're like, you won't get it until you have kids. Once you have kids, you'll understand. And they're 1000% true. And I think I will continue to learn that as he gets older. So yeah, so that was all the questions from the Q&A. I don't think I missed any. I know this is a super long video. And thank you for those of you who still stayed on with me through this whole thing and listened to my experience and chit-chatted with me. I know I missed a lot of comments earlier. Like I said, I'm gonna have to go back and actually type it out to you guys. Also, I wanna say too, I know that I still have messages in my inbox. I'm going to be brutally honest with you. It's going to take me a long time. I had hundreds and hundreds of messages to catch up on from when Parker was born, and being exhausted, like I literally take any chance I can to nap at this point. So I'll do 2 to 5 messages a day that I try to respond to. I'm also trying really hard I actually have to do a post of thanking people for gifts that they've sent. You guys have been awesome, and I've had some amazing followers that have sent things to my P.O. box for Parker. Literally makes me want to cry. Such a blessing. Like, I don't even know. Like, I appreciate you guys so much. So I've been trying to post when I get those in. I haven't been to the P.O. box in quite some time, but I have a couple that I have from actually that came in a few weeks ago, and I haven't posted them yet. So I'm trying to get back into the swing of things, but I'm still recovering, still exhausted. If you've had a kid, you get it. I love you, Mel. I love you so much. Napping is life. Laura says, you're so right. You'll learn that through the whole journey of raising your kids, the sacrifice. It's definitely a sacrifice. But I will say, one thing that has been true, you know, a lot of advice that you get from people before you have a child, you got to take it with a grain of salt. You know, everyone's experience is different. But the one thing that I will say is true, and should be true for everyone, I firmly believe, unless you're just like a super shit human being, all of it is 1,000% worth it. Because, and I'm gonna get emotional, I say Parker's name and tears well up in my eyes. When he looks into my eyes, like he will look up at me, and he literally has the most mesmerizing, lovey eyes, and they're so dreamy. And it's just pure love. He loves me. There is no, he loves me, but he loves me if there's none of that. It is pure love. And that is a feeling that, even though I didn't necessarily have that bond right from the get-go, now that we're getting to know each other, and when we have our time, just him and I throughout the day, it's irreplaceable. And it makes all the sleepless nights worth it. It makes the pain from my recovery worth it. It makes the fiasco of me trying to figure out if I can breastfeed or not worth it. That is the one piece of advice or saying that everyone says to you when you're pregnant that I have found to be true. The one thing. So anyway, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Like I said, I appreciate you all so much. If you get a chance, please head on over to my Instagram if you're on Instagram, The Maven Life with MW, and give my Instagram a follow. I'm trying really hard to grow that platform. We hit 60,000 followers on this page within the last 24 hours, and I am so excited about it. I have some exciting things coming up in the future as far as some brand collaborations that have popped up, and you guys sharing my videos, you guys being here, hitting the like button, the follow button, and participating with what I do truly helps me. If it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be able to do any of this. I wouldn't be able to work from home. I wouldn't be able to do brand collaborations. I'm working really hard to get to the point where my full-time job is social media, my social media platform, and I bring in money from this page for my family. That's really my goal. I'm a marketing student, even though right now I'm not in school because I took a break, obviously. That's another thing. I thought I was going to go back in the winter time. I don't know. It depends on how Parker is, because this is hard. So that's another thing. I give mad props to the mamas who go to school and raise babies, because crazy. But I really, a goal that I set for myself for this page this year is to get my first brand deal, paid brand deal. And I know a lot of people don't talk about this, and I don't know why. As an influencer, it's known, usually you either get free product from brands that you enjoy to share with people, right? Or discount codes to give to people. But then there's also a way that you can bring money in. I mean, this is a way that you can provide for your family. And my ideal situation is staying home with my son, raising him, and spreading positivity online. And if I can turn that into a career, hells to the yeah. So you guys have literally changed my life in the last 5 years of doing this, and seeing this page grow to the extent that it has and giving me the opportunities that it already has it's life-changing, and I'm just so grateful. So I love you guys so much. Thank you again for tuning in, and I will talk to you later. Bye.